Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the train station. As always, I am your host, A-Train. Today with another video. I know it's been a minute. I've been working on some things, and part of the things I've been working on is right behind me, actually. We are sponsored / partnered with Doobie Energy, as you can see right behind me. I've had the chance to try them out. They're really, really good. The link to that will be in my description, as well as my coupon code to get yourself 10% off. That will also be in the link below. I just wanted to share that news before I went ahead and got started today. Big things coming to the podcast. This is just the beginning. So if you guys could please support me in any way possible, it would be very much appreciated. Once again, shout out to Doobie for sponsoring the podcast. And let's get into it. We're less than a week away from the NFL from the NFL draft, excuse me. So I'm going to do one final mock draft. I'm going to do one final mock before the NFL draft, and then when the NFL draft ends, I am going to be breaking down more than likely just the Detroit Lions selections. Maybe we'll see if I do every team, but more than likely it'll be just the Detroit Lions selections. But let's get one final mock out there before the NFL draft. So as you can see right here behind me, we have the NFL draft selections. This one will be with trades, so you don't have to worry about me not trading or doing anything like that. Sorry, my green screen is going ridiculous right now. I don't know why it's being the way it's being, but we're going to just have to deal with it as is. So we're going to start this draft with the Carolina Panthers. There's a lot of talk that this could very well be Bryce Young here, but I think that's just smoke and mirrors. I don't think they traded up all the way from pick 9 with the Chicago Bears to draft Bryce Young. I still think the selection is C.J. Stroud, the quarterback from the Ohio State University. Houston Texans are then on the clock at number 2. And there's been talk that they might not go a quarterback here, and it's very possible that they don't. Will Anderson, arguably the best player in the draft. They have a new defensive-minded head coach in DeMarco Ryans. So maybe very well maybe they take a quarterback later on, but I think you're in the position you're in to take a quarterback. So while I could see them potentially maybe even trading out of this spot, they stick with their gut and they take Bryce Young, the quarterback from Alabama. And really, the draft starts at number 3, and Arizona has received plenty of calls to trade down with this pick. And I think they do. I think it's the most logical thing to do is to trade down. They're a team that needs way more draft picks than just being in the top 5. They have a lot of needs. So by trading down and getting more in, they can get that value later on. So we're gonna have them trade with the Indianapolis Colts. They're gonna get pick 1, and for the sake of this, they're gonna get the second round pick from the Colts as well to move down one spot. Colts move up to take a quarterback, and it's likely going to be Anthony Richardson or Will Levis. I feel like the Colts really, really like a guy like Will Levis. So Will Levis is going to go to the Indianapolis Colts. Arizona at 4. Again, I could see this being a potential another trade down spot. And we're going to have them do that again. We're going to have Arizona trade down again. And this time they're going to trade with the Tennessee Titans. And they are going to get their first round pick at 11, the second round pick, and third round pick in the draft for pick number 4, which means Tennessee moves up. Ryan Tannehill, I believe, is on the last year of his contract. They're looking at moving Derrick Henry, and who is a running back. They're looking at moving him, so potentially get more picks to move up, more ammunition to move up with that. And there's been reports that they're not really too happy with Malik Willis, who they drafted last year. So they jump the gun, they move up, and they take Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida, who's a very big boomer bust kind of guy. He could very easily be the best quarterback in the draft or the worst quarterback in the draft. Which brings us to Seattle, and if the draft plays out this way, Seattle will be more than happy to have Will Anderson drop right into their lap. So Will Anderson will be going number 5 to Seattle, and then we have Detroit at 6. And this could be another potential trade down spot. So with the Lions, and this could be to potentially be a trade down spot. They did fix their secondary in the offseason with guys like Sutton and Mosley. But is that just a temporary fix? They could get a guy like Devin Witherspoon. They still need it. And they traded away Jeffrey Okudah. So that could potentially play a big part here. Jalen Carter, despite his off-the-field issues, could be a very good pick for the Lions here. Like I said, they could also trade down, but I think they go with their gut and they get a hard-nosed, tough man-to-man corner. Dan Campbell and company really like those tough, gritty players, and I think that's Devin Witherspoon, the corner out of Illinois. Christian Gonzalez could also very much be in contention there. A lot of people, I'm much higher on Witherspoon than I am Gonzalez, but it really just depends on the team. Like I said, that could be another potential trade down spot there. Now we have the Las Vegas Raiders. They're in desperate need of some talent. They brought in Jimmy Garoppolo on I believe it's a 1-year contract, and he gets hurt all the time. So maybe they go try and trade up for a quarterback of the future. Jimmy G's contract allows them to do that, but they desperately need a corner. I think Christian Gonzalez here for the Las Vegas Raiders makes the most sense. Atlanta, defense is needed big time. Tyree Wilson, a lot of experts are high on his potential. I'm not so high on him. They go and they get the guy from their backyard. Despite the off-the-field issues, I don't see Jalen Carter dropping out of the top 10. So they get the guy right out of their own backyard. The Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter goes to Atlanta, which fills a big need for them. The Bears, another potential trade down spot here. They're in the midst of a rebuild, and you have to give Justin Fields as much weapons as possible. I mean, you could take a tackle here, as I think there will be a run on tackles here shortly. But for the Bears, I think they trade this pick down to accumulate more draft picks. They have 3 in the second, so I think they're going to want even more, and they're going to trade down a few spots with the New York Jets, who could potentially have Aaron Rodgers at this point. So maybe not the Jets, but they'll trade with the Jets. I just have to figure out a way to get this to work. The Bears trade down with the Jets. Or maybe not, because, it doesn't seem like that wants to happen. So we're actually going to have them trade in the division. They are going to trade with the Packers. They're going to give up a 4th-round pick. The Packers are going to give up 15 and 45. So the Bears will have 4 in the 2nd round. They do an interdivisional trade, which is kind of rare. Packers moving on from Aaron Rodgers. At some point, he will be a New York Jet. I'm not sure when, but at some point, he'll be a New York Jet. Packers, as much as Jackson Smith and Jigba is very enticing here, they don't do first-round wide receivers. They see Tyree Wilson start to slip a little bit. They trade with the Bears, and they take Tyree Wilson, the edge out of Texas Tech, as he begins to slip. A lot could be going on with the Eagles here. Corner is a big need. Safety is a big need as they lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to Detroit. Edge rusher also a big need as Brandon Graham is getting older. But also another potential trade down spot. There's also rumors. I mean, Bijan Robinson is a great pick for them here, but there's also rumors that they could be landing Derrick Henry, and I'm not really sure what that's going to entice. If that's going to entice the 30th pick, the 10th pick, maybe a second rounder. But yeah. So for the I think I don't know if it's just picks or players, so it's just players, but I think the 30th pick will go to the Titans for Derrick Henry. And so at 10, they're going to take defense. They're going to take a high motor guy and Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher out of Iowa, which puts Arizona finally back on the clock after trading down twice. So Arizona on the clock at 11. Defense, huge need for them here. Miles Murphy could be a guy. Nolan Smith could be the guy. Deonte Banks could be the guy. But with the recent run on edge rushers, I think they take it. And I think they go Nolan Smith, the edge rusher out of Georgia, which puts the Houston Texans back on the clock for the second time. You got Bryce Young. Now you have to find a way to either protect Bryce Young or get some help on the defense. And I think they're going to get, or you could find a weapon for him. You did trade away Brandon Cooks to the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe this is a potential trade down spot for them as well, for a team that's more in need of a tackle than they are, or a team that needs a corner, and that's what we're going to do, a team that needs a corner. So Houston's actually going to trade down with the Washington Commanders. They're going to give up both fourths next year, a bunch of sixths to move, and they get their first and second pick. So Washington on the clock desperately need a cornerback. Joey Porter Jr. is sitting there. Deonte Banks is sitting there. Emmanuel Forbes is sitting there. DJ Turner could sneak into the first round late. He's a very underrated corner. But I think they go with Joey Porter Jr. after the trade up. The Jets on the clock. We're assuming Aaron Rodgers will be on the team, and it won't be for the 13th pick. So they got to find a way to protect Aaron Rodgers. They've done a bad job protecting guys like Zach Wilson and such. They're going to get arguably the best tackle in the draft, who can also play on the inside as guard, or even on either side he could play guard. They're going to go Peter Skoronski, which brings us to New England, and who knows what Bill Belichick is going to do. This is one of the hardest teams to always mock for, because you're not really sure what he's ever going to do. Wide receiver is a big time need for Mac Jones in that team. Maybe they look at maybe they trade down and try and get a quarterback later on in the first round, a guy like Hendon Hooker, or maybe they wait and they take a Tanner McGee in the second round. Do they really trust Mac Jones? I don't know. So maybe they're a team that's aggressive and trades up for a quarterback. Jackson Smith-Njigba makes the most sense here, but I just don't see Bill Belichick. He's like the Patriots and the Packers are always the toughest teams to mock for, because they never do what you expect them to do. Patriots do need some offensive line help as well. Maybe a corner in there as well. Potentially a trade down, though. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen as well. Bill Belichick loves trading down. So New England's going to trade down with a team that is in desperate need. A team that is in desperate need of a tackle. They're trading with good old Tampa Bay, who they have a lot of history with trading. And then Tampa Bay being on the clock, they're going to get Paris Johnson Jr. Makes the most sense. Desperate need at offensive line there for them. Patriots trade down. They get a pick back. They give up some later round picks. You know, Bill Belichick doing his thing in the trade down. Chicago back on the clock after trading down. Miles Murphy still being on the board here, as well as Jackson Smith-Njigba. It's tough. Do you give Justin Fields the weapon that he so needs? He has a desperate need at wide receiver. He played with Smith-Njigba at the collegiate level. Do you give it to him? I don't think so. I think they wait. It's a very deep wide receiver class. I think they take Miles Murphy here at 15. and Houston back on the clock at 16 after trading down. So the Texans now at 16. Bryce Young, Jordan, the run on receivers hasn't happened as much as they probably would have expected at this point. And there's been a big time on edge rushers, and I think they desperately want a edge rusher or maybe a defensive lineman here. That's what they're going to do. They're going to go Kalaji Kancey from Pittsburgh, the defensive lineman, to help, build that defense. Texans are a good team that looks like they could be building something in the future. And with the division basically rebuilding the entire division outside of the Jags, they very well could easily find themselves in the playoffs, maybe this year, or if not this year, definitely next year. Pittsburgh, desperate need for corner, so a guy like Deonte Banks would maybe go. Offensive tackle, also a big need for them. And I think that's what they're going to do because of the way that Pittsburgh likes. They're a run-first team. Easiest way to get a run-first team out there is to protect the running back, get him run blockers. Broderick Jones seems like the great pick here, but no, I'm actually going to change it up. It might be a little early. He's ranked 41, but I think he could sneak his way into the first round. These rankings don't really mean much to me. I've seen tape on a lot of these guys. I think some guys will go higher than others. Some guys will fall. That's just the nature of the draft. DeWand Jones from The Ohio State goes to Pittsburgh at 17. So the Lions are back up. They took Devin Witherspoon with the 6th pick, who they got from the Los Angeles Rams. This is their own pick. I think they continue the defensive trend here. Maybe a guy like Keon White, who has a lot of first-round buzz. B.J. Ojulari. Isaiah Foskey could find himself in the back end of the first round. Brian Brzee. Mozzie Smith. They could even go tight end here. They desperately need a tight end as well. And with none of them off the board, and they get their pick, I think that's what they do. And they're going to get arguably the best tight end in the draft, and Dalton Kincaid for the Detroit Lions. Now the Patriots are back on the clock. He's still sitting there. There's no way they don't take him, right? Wrong. They don't take him, and instead they go and they fix their offensive line. The Patriots go and they take Darnell Wright, the offensive tackle from Tennessee. I just don't see Bill Belichick taking a receiver as much as I think they need to, and Jackson Smith and Jigba still sitting there. Even a guy like Quentin Johnston, but Bill Belichick's going to do what Bill Belichick does. It's very, very hard to mock for the Patriots. I hate doing it. But I just feel like they're going to go with the safe pick, and the most safe Patriots pick is to go offensive line, and that's what they do. They did it last year. They took a 3rd round, 4th round guy. First overall, I don't think they quite do. I don't think they reach that high this year. I just think they play their board. Bill Belichick's board's a lot different than all of ours. He takes the guy who he feels the safest with, which at this point in the draft is right. Seattle back on the clock. Pick 5 came from Denver. This is their own pick. Wide receiver could be in play here. Corner could also be in play here. Maybe they go more defense, but the run on receivers has to end. Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver from TCU, likely the first wide receiver off of the board. Quentin Johnston goes to the Seattle Seahawks. So with the Chargers on the clock for the first time, this might be the first potential landing spot for Bijan Robinson. If the Eagles do not trade for Derrick Henry, then Bijan Robinson likely an Eagle. But in this mock draft, I'm saying that they will end up getting Derrick Henry. So the Chargers are on the clock. Austin Eckler wants out. Wide receiver also a big need for them. They just seen their guy Quentin Johnston go. Jackson Smith and Jigba could be a pick here. Zay Flowers, arguably the best receiver in the draft outside of Smith and Jigba, could go. But they stick to their board. Or they stick to the board and the way it's played out. They go with the best talent available. Bijan Robinson, easily a top 5 talent in the draft. They stick with their guns and they pick Bijan Robinson. You have him for 5 years now. You can ease the transition of Austin Eckler with Bijan Robinson quite easily. Ravens, what are you going to do with Lamar Jackson? Nothing's been decided yet. Corner is always a big need for them. They always like to build defense up, but you have to get, if you're going to re-sign Lamar Jackson, you have to get him weapons. And the best weapon on the board still there, Jackson Smith and Jigba to the Baltimore Ravens, just makes the most sense. Minnesota on the clock here at 23. This is an interesting pick because Kirk Cousins on the last year of his deal, you don't really have a backup guy, and maybe a quarterback could be in play here. A guy like Tanner McGee, I know he's ranked 122, but he could find himself in the latter of the second or maybe even third round. Hendon Hooker could be a good pick here. They also desperately need a back-end secondary. Brian Branch could be in play. He could play nickel. He's listed as a safety, but he can play nickel corner. Brian Brzee could be in play here. Mozzie Smith as well could be in play here. Deonte Banks, though, best defensive player on the board at this point in time. They don't take a quarterback. I know there's a lot of talk about a quarterback, but I think they wait until next year when the quarterback class is much, much better. They take Deonte Banks, the corner from Maryland. The Jags, who surprised everybody last year by making the playoffs after back-to-back number 1 picks. And last year, instead of taking Aiden Hutchinson, they went ahead and they went a different route. They went the athletic guy, and I think they do the same here. I think they're going to go Brian Branch. It feels like a very Jags pick. He can play safety. He can line up at safety. He can line up at nickel. You can probably even play him at linebacker. He's so versatile, and that's really what the Jags like. So the Jags and new GM Balke, whatever his name is, they really like those athletic freaks on defense. Brian Branch is an athletic freak on defense that you can move all over the field. And so Jacksonville sticks with their guns, picks Brian Branch, and they get the guy that they want. Now, the New York Football Giants released Kenny Golladay, who was a major flop for them. And they definitely need a guard as well. Wide receiver could be in play. Guard could be in play as well. And they could also potentially shock everybody and go like tight end, which they also will probably need at some point. But I think because he's still on the board at this point, the best inside offensive lineman in the draft, the guard Osiris Torrance, will go 25 to the New York Football Giants. A team I hate picking for because I can't stand what they do, and I hope the fan in me, the Cowboy hater in me hopes that whoever they pick is a complete bust. But for the sake of this mock draft, I'm fair to everybody. I give my opinion on every team fairly. Ezekiel Elliott likely out as Dallas Cowboys. If somehow Bijan Robinson falls all the way to 26, or even if he falls to before the Chargers, maybe the Cowboys trade up and get it and try to get Bijan Robinson, who's literally just down the road from them. But tight end, a big need for them as well. They have Dalton Schultz, but that's about it. Linebacker, huge need for the Cowboys, as well as running back. And a lot of linebackers aren't highly rated in this, but I really like Jack Campbell. And the Cowboys desperately need a linebacker. So a bit of a surprising pick here in the first round. Jack Campbell, the linebacker out of I know people like, some guys like Trenton Simpson, some guys like Drew Sanders, but Jack Campbell, I think, will be arguably the best linebacker in the draft. And a kind of a very weak linebacker class compared to other years. So you might see some teams reach for the guy that they want. And I think the Cowboys do that here with Jack Campbell. They reach for the guy that they want because they can fill other needs, like running back later in the draft where it's still stacked. Linebacker is very thin this year. I mean, as you can see, Drew Sanders, Trenton Simpson might go first round. After that, it's slim pickings. I mean, I think Demarion Overshown will be very good. Noah Sewell as well. Both of those guys are kind of underrated. But it's slim pickings at linebacker this year, so the Cowboys get a linebacker. Buffalo Bills, wide receiver, big need for them. Inside linebacker, also a need. And I think that they go with one of the guards. John Michael Schmitz can play guard. He can play center. But they go Steve Avila, the inside lineman from TCU, who I think could be a very, very good pick for them. Wide receiver seems likely, though. After my microphone rudely cut out at the Bengals pick, basically my decision was, are they going to protect Joe Burrow or are they going to give Joe Burrow a weapon? Ultimately, I chose to protect Joe Burrow. Broderick Jones was still on the board. He fell, so they take him. Saints, wide receiver could be needed as Michael Thomas is often injured, but they go defensive line in a very winnable division. You can get lots of wide receivers later in the draft. Pick 30, it says the Eagles, but ignore that. It wouldn't let me do the trade. The Tennessee Titans trade Derrick Henry to the Eagles for pick number 30. So Zay Flowers is actually a Tennessee Titan, not a Philadelphia Eagle. They got Anthony Richardson with the 4th pick. So they go and they get him a weapon in Zay Flowers. Darnell Washington for the Chiefs. As Travis Kelce's getting older, they quickly find his replacement. Big guy. Michael Mayer could also be a guy here, but I think they like the bigger Darnell Washington. And then the Steelers at 32, technically a second round pick, round 2, pick 1, but because the Dolphins had to forfeit their first round pick for tampering, trying to get Tom Brady when he was a free agent, or before he was a free agent, when he left New England the first time, before he retired and came back with Tampa. They tried to tamper with him, so they lose their draft pick. So this is technically round 2, pick 1, but because there's 32 picks in the first round, this and for the mock draft falls in the first round. Cam Smith, they get a corner. They address their line earlier. Now they go defense, and that is the 32-team mock draft that we will just go over once again in just a moment. So just to review the first round trades here, I have Arizona trading twice at 3 and 4, and they trade with the Colts and they trade with the Titans. They get a bunch of mid-round picks, great for a team that's rebuilding like them. Chicago trades with the Packers in a division trade that you don't see too often, but with the guys falling the way they did, Chicago picks up more mid-round picks from the Packers, who are losing Aaron Rodgers, so they'll have more ammo to potentially trade up, which makes it even more likely with the Bears, who want to trade down and acquire more picks anyways. Houston trades down as they're comfortable with Bryce Young, and they're comfortable with the wide receivers later on in the draft. And then classic Bill Belichick trades down. So just to review the mock draft really fast, first 4 picks in the draft are all quarterbacks. 3 by the AFC South, which is the Texans, the Colts, the Titans, and the Jags. The Jags got their quarterback of the future 2 years ago in Trevor Lawrence. So the rest of the AFC South attempts their try. Bryce Young, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. I still think C.J. Stroud is the number 1 overall pick. Like I said, I don't think Carolina traded down or traded up 8 spots to take a smaller quarterback in Bryce Young. I still think C.J. Stroud is the better quarterback. In my opinion, it's C.J. Stroud. There's a big gap, and then Bryce Young, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. And it's a big gap between Bryce Young and the rest. I think it's C.J. Stroud here, Bryce Young here, everybody else down here. That's just my opinion. Will Levis seems just like a Colt guy. You very easily could go Anthony Richardson. Also, I think Carolina might go Anthony Richardson if it's not C.J. Stroud. He has a lot of traits compared to Cam Newton, which they would fall in love with that, potentially. But Will Levis, Anthony Richardson could flip-flop. Anthony Richardson, I think, is the biggest project in the first round for a quarterback. Could be a big boom, could be a big bust. Will Anderson falls right to Seattle's lap. Way too easy for him. Corners start flying off the board a little bit here. Devin Witherspoon is just a tough, gritty guy. Christian Gonzalez could also go here to Detroit, but I think Detroit continues to address the secondary with the first pick. Desperate need at corner for the Raiders, so whoever the Lions don't pick, they'll get the next guy. Just like these quarterbacks. Whoever Carolina doesn't get, Houston will get, and then so on and so forth. Big need for Atlanta. They get the hometown guy. Despite his off the field issues, he doesn't drop out of the top 10. They have a desperate need at defensive line. They take it. Packers trade up with division rival Bears to take Tyree Wilson, who starts to fall. I don't think he's really a Bears type of player. So the Bears are okay with trading down. Maybe Lucas Von Ness is a guy that the Bears like, or Nolan Smith, but I don't really see the Bears liking Tyree Wilson too much. They trade down, they get more mid-round picks. They can really start to build the draft and help do a more formidable team for Justin Fields. He's clearly the quarterback of the future there, and rightfully so. Lucas Von Ness then goes to the Eagles. The rich get richer there. If they don't get Derrick Henry, which I do have them doing in this draft, then this could potentially be Bijan Robinson. Arizona finally gets a pick. They get some more help in the mid-rounds, though. And they go with the best edge rusher still left in Nolan Smith. So a bit of a run on edge rushers there. Houston trades down. They're confident with Derek Stingley. They wait. They play the board. Washington desperately needs a corner. They seen Gonzalez and Witherspoon already go off the board. So they jump up and they grab Joey Porter out of Penn State. The Jets protect Aaron Rodgers, which that trade will happen at some point. The Bucks could maybe go quarterback at some point, as their only quarterbacks on the roster are Baker Mayfield on a 1-year deal and Kyle Trask, who nobody believes in. But they desperately need an offensive lineman. Their offensive line for Tom Brady was absolutely horrendous. They get the best tackle still available in Paris Johnson Jr. If Peter Skoronski doesn't go here, maybe he goes to the Bears, and maybe they stay put at 9 and he goes there. But it's like the quarterback situation and the corner situation, the best guy available. Miles Murphy at 15 is the Bears finally pick. They get the best edge rusher still on the board. Kalijah Kanchancy could go here at 18 to Detroit. But if Texans do go quarterback at 2, which I have them doing, they stay and then they take and they build from the inside out after this. DeJuan Jones, a bit of a surprise in the first round. Not really a highly rated tackle. Darnell Wright is rated higher, but to me, DeJuan Jones is a much better prospect. I mean, I think he's right up there with Skoronski and Paris Johnson Jr. Maybe experts don't see it that way. I do. I watch plenty of Ohio State games to know that he is the real deal, and he'll be a fantastic pick. Great run blocker for them. Lions take the best tight end on the board in Dalton Kincaid. Darnell Wright just seems like a safe pick for New England. I really wanted to give them Jackson Smith and Jigba. I really did, to help Mac Jones out, but Bill Belichick, I think, goes with a safe pick. This could also be Deonte Banks, a corner here. But like I said, they go with the safest pick on the board, which is Darnell Wright. Seahawks stop the drop of Quentin Johnston. Maybe the Patriots could also trade down here again for a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who, if the Eagles don't take Bijan Robinson with Zeke leaving, they could potentially trade up and get a guy like Bijan Robinson. But they go with the safe pick. And then the Seahawks stop the drop of Quentin Johnston, who should be a top 10, maybe top 15 pick. They stop the drop. They take him. Chargers stop the horrendous drop of Bijan Robinson, who and if running backs were as valuable as they used to be, easily a top 5 pick. But because they're not as valuable as they once were, he slides down. Chargers take advantage. Austin Eckler on his way out. Easy plug and play for the next 5 years. I don't know what's going on with the Lamar Jackson situation, but give him a weapon. Finally, the best receiver in the draft is off the board at 22. Another fall that they stop. So Ravens go Jackson Smith and Jigba. Desperate need at corner for the Vikings. This could be a quarterback as well. This could be Hendon Hooker at 23. Just putting it out there, it could be. But it's not. It is corner Deonte Banks. Brian Branch, an athletic guy, as I mentioned, for the Jags. They love the athletic guys. They go with the best inside linebacker or best inside guard in the draft at this point in Osiris Torrance, who I could see very easily going to Seattle at 20. But they stopped the Quentin Johnston run. I mean, quarterback could also be a potential here at Seattle for 20. Geno Smith on a 1-year deal. And then, like I said, a bit of a reach for the Cowboys, but like I said earlier, the linebacker class is very weak this year. So you're gonna have teams reaching to get the guy that they want. Jack Campbell being the best linebacker. Him and Drew Sanders are like 1A and 1B. So you'll see teams reach for those guys. Cowboys desperately need a linebacker, and so they go with Jack Campbell. Steve Avila for the Bills as they get guard help. This could easily be wide receiver. You guys heard me mention earlier with the Bengals, is it protect Joe Burrow or give Joe Burrow another weapon? I chose to protect him. Broderick Jones, Mozzie Smith, another team. They have Jameis Winston they re-signed, and they signed Derek Carr to a massive deal. So they're good on quarterback, or so they think. So they go Mozzie Smith, inside linebacker, or inside lineman, not linebacker. Very impressive. Good run stopper for them, especially in that division where, you're not really going to have a lot of strong running backs, so it'll be a good run stopper for them. Like I said, this is not the Eagles. Picture a Tennessee Titans logo here. Derrick Henry goes to Philly. This is the Titans. Zay Flowers after getting Anthony Richardson. Darnell Washington as Travis Kelce is getting older. That doesn't mean they're replacing Travis Kelce, but they're getting ready for life without Travis Kelce. Darnell Washington can learn behind him, even, play a little bit. Huge target for Patrick Mahomes. And then Cam Smith, as I mentioned, technically a second-round pick, but they got their lineman earlier with DeWan Jones, and then they get Cam Smith, which is also a bit of a reach. But the Steelers kind of had to with the run that went on corners later on. And yeah, that is my final mock draft. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Once again, we are sponsored right here. Link to that, once again, will be in the description along with my coupon code to get yourself 10% off. You support me in both ways by clicking on the link and buying, and using my creator code or my sponsor code. Helps me out a lot, and I would really appreciate it. And I will catch you guys after the NFL draft. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a full 32-team recap yet, or just like one or two teams like the Lions and the Rams, or the NFC North or something like that. But I will be back with a NFL draft recap. Thanks for hanging out. I very much appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys after the NFL draft. Hope you guys enjoy it. Watch lots of NFL draft this week, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.